69 on the road driving through Canada in a van with a guy called Craig who's sitting next to me, Craig Cassidy, sipping a bottle of wine. We are driving from Banff to Kamloops today. We've been into the wild and we're heading back to civilization. Now this is podcast 69 and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, Tom, why are you in a pink van? Maybe you've seen that on YouTube, or you will be seeing our adventures on YouTube. Why are you in a van with a bloke? And why is he drinking a bottle of wine? And are you sleeping in the van together? What the fuck is this? And this is podcast 69. It all sounds dodgy to me. Maybe you're thinking of Brokeback Mountain. You dirty fuckers. With your dirty minds, as I always say to girls, I'm responsible for my words. You are responsible for how you interpret them in your dirty thoughts. But sitting next to me is Craig Cassidy, who I met in Sydney. He was a very active Sydney daygamer, but he's a British bloke. Good evening, Craig. Do you want to introduce yourself, your background, your daygame background, your gay game background, whatever?
How's it going, guys? So yeah, I'm Craig Cassidy, and been doing daygame now for almost 4 years, on and off. And I met this despicable gentleman next to me back in 2012. So yeah, 4 years ago in London. I did some training with him. Then again we met last year? Yeah. Last year in Australia, where we got wet and wild in the Blue Mountains. In a hostel.
It's getting worse.
Yeah, it's getting worse. But yeah, I've been doing daygame on and off for 4 years now. More recently, I have been coaching as well. So yeah, and we are driving across this stunning landscape. I am sipping a bottle of wine, but I'll tell you about that later on.
Can you explain the sleeping arrangements?
Yeah, so we're slumming it, guys. You'll see on the video we are no expense spared. We are sleeping in a van and taking in turns sleeping in a tent. Yeah, it's good.
Right, so you have, before Canada, I sent you off to do a residential. You've been teaching a residential in the Baltics, as well as some London bits and bobs. Oh, and you filmed, you'll have seen Craig on camera. Not on YouPorn, but on YouTube, on the Street Hustle documentary. Craig is an instructor and he was a cameraman. So if you're still asking me about the basics of daygame, how do you get started, what is the London daygame model, go to YouTube and check out that half an hour documentary. But anyway, that was you before Canada. What were your dirty lay reports? You got 2 lays in 5 days, something like that, in the Baltics.
Yeah, so was it 2 weeks ago now? I was teaching residential in the Baltics. I was there for a week. My student was there for 5 days. So before he arrived, I did some daygame. And then on the first full day, I met a cute Latvian girl and met her later in the evening. Went for a few drinks and I managed to get her back to I was staying in a hostel on the first night, so I managed to get her back to the private room in the hostel. I got a lap dance, but I didn't get the lay. Lots of LMR, but I did see her again later in the week. But during the residential, I demoed on a rather hot Israeli yes girl. So the story of these 2 lays shows you the extremes of daygame. So the Israeli girl, it was a demo, but she IOI'd me pretty strongly. And the student saw this. She was just blown away by my vibe. I took the number, carried on with my coaching for the day. Met her later in the evening, where we had literally 1 drink. Straight back to mine to smoke cigarettes on the balcony. Yeah, pretty straightforward. No LMR, not like the first night. A wild night with an Israeli. Then coaching took up most of my week, and after the student left, I managed to get the Latvian girl from the first night back. I had to send a royal flush message. So if you don't know what that is, I think Tom, you've done videos on the royal flush. Yeah, sometimes you need to be willing to walk away, to lose the set, to lose the girl. So I basically laid it out. You either meet me tonight, it's my last night here, or it's cool, I'll go off and do my own thing. She agreed to meet after playing silly buggers for a little bit, and I was actually really tired from the week. So on the date I did nothing. I pretty much said nothing. There was a lot of tension. I bounced her back, and yeah, as soon as she came into my room, I sealed the deal, and she loved it. She loved it.
She loved it. She loved it. She was loving the deal. Well, that's bloody good. 2 lays in a week. This plus, you know, you weren't even there to do day game yourself, really, as you were coaching. So bloody marvellous. Then you were in London, and then I met Mr. Cassidy, the outlaw himself, in Heathrow Airport. Was it Heathrow or Gatwick? Gatwick.
No.
Heathrow. And we flew to Canada, and we picked up this van in Vancouver. And as you'll see from the YouTube videos, yeah, it's been wild to drive him around. The idea now, we should have this disclaimer, right? The idea of this trip, when I messaged Craig, I said, yeah, we'll teach a boot camp, we'll do some training in Vancouver, but Craig is a cameraman, a photographer, I like all that stuff, so we said we'll go into the wild, you know, with the van, with the tent, we'll see glaciers and bears and lakes, and no women. We said absolutely no women. This is a trip, like a monastic trip, you know, cleaning the mind, just downtime in a game, getting in touch with your core self. We didn't even fucking make it off the plane. Once again, Mr. Cassidy and I, Cassidy had a few wines, I had a few beers because they were complimentary. It was a long flight, and we were just ready to go. There were air hostesses, there was obviously girls giving us cheeky IOIs on the plane with their families. It was a bit frustrating, but that was driving us on. As soon as we got to Vancouver, flirting outrageously with a girl who hired us the van, and then on the road, and we just couldn't wait to get to any kind of civilization. The first night we just had to crash in a kind of a farm place, so nothing happened then. That was our cleanest night, really. The second night we ended up in a place called Revelstone. Is that right? Revelstoke, and we call it Revelstroke because we went out, wasn't much going on. Some of the locals had described these amazingly busy, active bars. We turned up, and sorry, there's a guy who doesn't know how to drive. Let's overtake on the inside lane. Yeah, we turned up in Revelstoke. Do you want to describe the first bit of the night, Mr. Cassidy?
From what I remember, we arrived in
pouring rain.
Yeah, pouring rain in the middle of nowhere in some random campsite.
Yep.
And we got told it was full by this sweet old lady. And then Mr. Tom worked his charm. Not like that. And yeah, we ended up pitching up in this weird campsite full of drunk baseball. Was it baseball fans, wasn't it?
Something like that. Yeah.
There was some baseball tournament going on or something like that. Pissing down with rain, mosquitoes. I was in the tent this night. I just did not want to be there. But we set up camp, and then we went out, didn't we? Hit the bar, hit the revel stroke nightlife. Couple of crappy bars. Then it picked up a little bit, and Mr. Tom has a story from said bar.
We found the only bar. It was a bit like a school disco, but this bar was, you could say, for Revelstroke. This was quite jumping because of this baseball tournament that weekend, or whenever it was. And slowly the girls were coming in, and we thought, okay, let the games begin. We were chatting to some girls, getting in the mood. I saw Craig getting on very nicely. Hang on, let me think where I'm going. Straight ahead, Craig? Straight on. Kamloops, yeah. Yeah, Craig was doing well with some girls, so I went outside to get some cash. And then when I came back to the bar, outside the bar there was this cute local lass smoking. And now I don't normally smoke, but it's bloody good if you're a night gamer or you do a lot of bar game. It's a great excuse to strike up a conversation. So I struck up a conversation. I was joking about smoking cigars, so she'd run out of cigarettes anyway, so I said, okay, well, we'll walk to 7-Eleven, which was 5 minutes away. We walked to 7-Eleven. There was a long queue in there, so I was spiking things up with her and the people around us and the cashier, and it was all good, and I could see that she was very keen, very interested. And luckily I remembered that there was this game of baseball going on somewhere nearby in some kind of outdoor stadium. So I said, oh, show me the stadium. It sounds interesting. And we found this dark, creepy, abandoned barbecue spot. And that's where we sat. And it was dark, very dark. And I worked my charm, and she ended up sitting on my lap. So as I told Craig, I got about 5 strokes in. And then she said, let's go back and rejoin her friends, who I've now discovered was her boyfriend, back in the bar. She went back, I went home, and then the next I went back to the van, and then the next morning Cassidy knocked on the door looking bright as a button. I was expecting the tent to be like collapsed, it was heavy rain, but no, there he was, fully clothed. You basically hadn't really slept that much, had you? And I think you were still a little bit intoxicated.
Still a bit drunk.
But there we go, that was Revelstoke, and then we moved on to Banff and Jasper and all that, and our next stories really happened in Banff, where we actually did a few outdoor sets, did a bit of day game. And Mr. Cassidy, do you want to say about your day game in Banff?
Yeah, so Banff, it's not London. There's no Oxford Street. There's no endless supply of girls. So yeah, we worked with what we could find. I think my first approach was she was an average Slovakian, nice long legs. She had the gap, which is always a good sign. But she said she had a boyfriend. She was
local town for local people.
Yeah, local town for local people. First girl was Slovakian. Didn't go anywhere. And then I met an English girl. She was a Geordie, like Geordie Shore. She was racing across the road actually, so I had to do a pretty strong front stop. But she stopped. She was a party girl. She was on her way home. She'd been out all night. So I took her. I didn't have data, so I had to take Facebook's, which was annoying. But it goes to show that it doesn't matter what details you get. You just want to get some kind of information so you can continue the interaction later. So I closed her, and then Tom, you met a girl, I think.
Oh yeah, we'll segue this in. Because that you met that English girl one night, and the date was the night after, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But was that the first time when I met the Saudi girl? Was that the same day you met the English girl to take her details?
Yeah, because then I stayed out.
Right, yeah. So we had gone out, like almost got a game kind of evening, and you got that English girl, and we did a few more sets, and then God just rolled me a dice. Or you could say Allah rolled me a dice. That would be more appropriate for this set. But ultimately Allah cocked blocked me yesterday, which was another good topic to talk about. But anyway, strolling down past McDonald's, if you know Banff, was a very dreamy girl, very scantily dressed, obviously in her own little world. And I said to Craig, shotgun, which is the rule if you're with your mate and you're a cunt like me. Shotgun just means I saw her first, and if you say shotgun you have to approach her even if it turns out to be a man. But luckily she was this dreamy girl from Saudi Arabia. It can't get much more strict, and her father and her brother live in Saudi, and her mother basically escaped with her and her sister to Ottawa, and now her sister was working for the summer in Banff, and she had come to visit, and this was her first taste of freedom. She could wear what she wanted to wear. She could stay out the night before. She had just had her first taste of alcohol, and long story short, the set was pretty straightforward. I've daygame Muslim girls before. I just felt, right, this is not a super yes girl, but this is definitely same day late territory. So I bounced her to a bar, we were drinking alcohol, bounced her to a second bar, and then, I should say this, Craig and I, because we had been in the wild, we had parked our camper van next to a hostel. So we were using the hostel showers, and one of us was staying in a hostel bed and the other one was staying in the van, and that night it was my turn to stay in the van. The van was just outside the hostel. So this Muslim girl, very strict Muslim girl, right, I had to bounce her a long walk down the road to the hostel and persuade her to get in a van, and I couldn't find where the lights were. So we got in a van and we listened to some YouTube. Luckily there was wireless, but eventually I had to say, look, shut the door because we're making a noise, you know. So we got in the van and we were kissing and rolling around and touching, and she was getting turned on, but it was just way too much. She was like, this is way too fast. So long story short, I didn't see her the next day. I don't think I saw her last night. Round two, got her all the way back to a bed. We'd got this this room for that very reason, and a huge LMR, got naked, got a hand job, tried to do other things, but she said, look, if my father or my brother find out that I'm not a virgin, you know, if my future husband finds out I'm not a virgin, I will literally be killed. She said, it's too dangerous. And I said, well, I can stick it somewhere else. And I tried, and she was like, no. So anyway, that was my Saudi Arabian story from Banff. And while all this was going on, I was battling 2-3 hours of LMR in this room. Another battle was taking place in the streets and alleys and vans of Banff.
Yeah, so before Tom went off to meet this girl, we were having a drink in, was it some English pub?
An English pub.
I had a date planned for 8:30, I think, and yours was at 8, right?
Yep.
But while we were sat there, lo and behold, there was a lonely American tourist, Yal from Georgia, who opened us, actually.
Yeah, she was cute.
She was nice, yeah. Tom and I laid it on thick and fast and hard.
Yeah, fast and furious.
Fast and furious, which she loved. And then Tom had to go, so I did the honourable thing and I decided to go for an upgrade. Because my date, ironically, the English girl that I approached a couple of days before, she'd not got back to me, so I thought she was a no-show. So it kind of worked in my favour. I thought, fuck it, I'll take this American for a drink. So I bounced her to a bar, and it turns out this bar is where Tom was having his date. And we were literally sat, there was only a couple of seats free and we were next to each other, so it was a bit of a weird vibe. And this American girl, it just wasn't on. I couldn't, the fizziness from earlier had gone. I couldn't take it any further than I did, but luckily my English girl reappeared, and so I ditched the American girl and I went to meet the English girl. Went back to the bar that Tom and I were in previously, and started my usual patter. Date was going really well, escalated pretty fast. She was telling me all her dirty secrets, I was telling her a few of mine, and I thought it was on. I thought, yes, tonight's the night, because it was my night in the van, that we were going to christen it. But unfortunately it was her birthday, and she was adamant that she wanted to see her friend in a bar on the way. She said one drink. I said no the first time, and then she was persistent, so I thought, oh, fuck it, I have to go with her to this bar. So we went to this bar, in there for one drink, and I'm trying to get her out. I mean, we're making out by now, and I'm sensing it's on, it's time to go. And then, as it turns out, her friend is a massive cockblock, which is why I don't really like doing night game. Her friend starts crying and she won't come, and we're outside, and I'm literally like, I've got to get this girl back. I mean, it's on, like I'm losing my window. She's like, no, I've got to look after my friend. I'll take her home and then I'll come and meet you. She checked on Google Maps, saw where we were staying. By this point, I think I phoned you up, didn't I, Tom?
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, like I'm losing this. So I went back to the van. She said she was going to come and meet me in half an hour, but half an hour never came. So I slept in the van alone like a chode with my quarter drunk bottle of wine, which I'm now finishing. So yeah, it was blue balls, a logistical fuck up, but you know, you got to roll the dice, you got to be in it to win it.
That's it, man. So we rolled out of town, and we are rolling into Kamloops. By the time this podcast goes out, maybe some dirty stuff will have happened. Maybe God will have rolled us 2 Swedish sisters. We've still got Kamloops to come. Then we got Vancouver for a few nights. So we're going to try and do some infields there. But we just get too carried away, either with going off and filming stuff or chasing down dirty hoes. But anyway, for the last few minutes, Mr. Cassidy, which was originally going to be the theme of this podcast, but we had to tell you those funny stories from the van as we're driving right now. But Cassidy, you've had all sorts of jobs, and in Australia you're doing all sorts of jobs to survive. So you have kind of unplugged for a while because you're a big traveller, and you've been travelling around Australia and you've done Europe. But right now you're considering daygame to become your thing, certainly unplugging full time to become your thing, travelling to become your thing. And this is the first real experiment, isn't it? Canada and the Baltics and London one-on-ones through with me. So what is the bloody plan? Wow, look at that view on the right. Fuck me. It's like a big Scottish loch. Alright, Cassidy, go for it.
Yeah, so my background is your typical blue pill background. I worked in insurance, fraud and auditing for about 4 years. Prior to going to Australia, and yeah, I've always felt like it just wasn't the life for me. Sitting in an office day in, day out, doing meetings for the sake of meetings and spreadsheets and filing and bosses, and I always felt I needed to escape. And funnily enough, actually, I was in a relationship prior to going to Australia, and she dumped me and I lost my job on the same day, which now I consider to be the best day of my life, because that gave me my first bit of freedom. Like, I was temporarily out the matrix. I left the country. I went to Oz, which was always my dream trip. Had a lot of fun in Oz, did the backpacking route, did some weird jobs like humping, banana humping. No, not like that. Did the East Coast, had a lot of fun down there, a lot of lays, but I wouldn't say they were typically day game lays, but you know, when out ecosystem lays. And then I met Tom last year, and you got in touch about doing some filming, primarily because I did photography. I'm a photographer as well. And yeah, you asked if I wanted to do some one-on-ones in London, and then a resi in the Baltics. And yeah, I'd been doing day game for 4 years, so I know the structure. I followed Tom for many years, so I know.
Sat outside my house.
Yeah, I mean, we live not far from each other in England, so he doesn't know this. And I bought my big zoom lens for that reason, to take pictures of you.
It's normal.
Yeah. So yeah, I thought, fuck it, I'll do some coaching. I was doing coaching in Sydney actually, a little bit. But yeah, when Tom said, would you like to do some, it was kind of like that moment where day game could become my reality full time. And yeah, the one-on-ones I've done so far have been great. The residential was awesome. The student did really, really well. And then this trip as well, it's going well so far. Yeah.
Vegas and LA probably, huh?
Yeah, maybe a US road trip later on this year, maybe. yeah, I've unplugged a bit now, and I don't think I could ever return to that lifestyle. But day games, this weird skill that I have that I can teach, and yeah, it's going well.
So there we are. I think we're coming up to half an hour or so. And like I said, this trip, perhaps this podcast was going to be something else, but like all good road trips, it just goes in its own direction. And yeah, we've done a lot of awesome photography. Craig flies his drone as well, so we've got amazing, ridiculously good drone footage, and we filmed bears, and it was spectacular. But we also just hit the day game really without thinking about it, without planning to do it, and good stuff is happening. And that's how it should be when you've done day game for a long time. It should just be nice and fluid, and what happens and you follow your horniness, but not like that, not between us in a van, but we expel that energy on the streets. So who knows what's going to happen tonight. A nice smooth upsell through Cassidy's story is that I'm, number one, a bit of a lazy bastard now, having been at the coalface of teaching for a long time, and number two, genuinely, I'm pretty much sold out for this year, and I'm not in London. A lot of guys assume that I live in London still, but I don't. I live in Central Europe, or I ride around in a van or whatever. So if you want UK coaching, probably that's going to be London, but it could be Cardiff or Bristol or Manchester or Liverpool, or even up to Glasgow, whatever. Then Craig is your man. Also, I've got another mate of mine, a wing, that I've talked to you about. I'll be introducing him, I think, next week or the week after. Daniel, he's in Britain as well. But these are top level day gamers with the skill. They can teach you. It can be a resi if you're keen on doing a 5-day Euro residential where you live with Craig or Daniel. Then just get in touch with me. I can talk to you about it. I can verify these guys for these guys. I'm not sure what I'm saying. I'm trying to drive here, but it's Tom at tomtorero.com. Thursday, the 4th of August update. Cheeky update on the end of the podcast. The morning after the night before, in this very bar. Craig and I are sitting here now recovering. But last night we staggered out of a hotel. We're staying in a hotel to have a shower and all that. And we had a couple of beers and we said, look, we're just knackered. Let's take it easy, ready for Vancouver. And then the barman said, oh, across the river there is an amateur stripper night. Not for strippers, just local girls taking their kit off. You should go down there, and music to our ears. Amateur strippers, girls getting their kit off. So we took a taxi around probably 10 p.m, maybe 11, something like that. Across the river, rolled the dice. What happened next, Craig?
Yeah, it's a bit of a blur, but we were in the bar, sat watching a few of the amateur girls dancing, and then yeah, I saw this one girl from across the bar looking. She was with a dude. Next thing I know, we're chatting to her at the bar.
I said to her, come with us, we're going to rescue you, because he looked really creepy and friends only.
Yeah, the guy was super weird. She was giving me those kind of get me out of your eyes. But we sat down with her. We had probably about 2 sips of our drink. It was super on, and then we bounced her out of there. Jumped in a cab straight back to our hotel, and you'll hear what happened next.
Take it, baby, take it.
Oh, fuck, give it to me.
Oh, yeah.
They call it menage a trois. 3 is the magic number, my grandmother used to say, and it was wonderful if you listen to that audio. And then just to top it off, because we'd had those frustrating things that we just told you about in the podcast, we said, listen, come outside to the car park, we want to show you the van and christen the van all together. It's a nice symbolic moment. And she was like, fuck yeah, let me call my lesbian friend. Craig and I look at each other, high five each other. Lesbian friend doesn't pick up. It's just about 2 a.m. We've got all this on audio, by the way, so don't worry, it will be coming at you in some form. But anyway, into the van with a wham, bam, thank you, van. As she was shouting, oh no, I think Craig was shouting, Jimmy, which is the name of our van. Rocking all night long. So there you go. As we said in the podcast, roll the dice. Sometimes God gives you a 1, sometimes he gives you a 6 or a 69, or Whatever. There we go. That was the end of the podcast. We will speak to you next time. Ta-da.
See you later, guys. Jimmy.